Chapter 14, Brain Energy. Yeah, show your fancy cover. So, true story, I left my book sitting on my desk over the weekend, and the sun warped it.
Slacker.
So, it's truly one of a kind at this point. But, so Chapter 14, Contributing Cause, Sleep, Light, and Circadian Rhythms.
So, I did a little research. Circadian rhythm is that process of sleep and wake cycle that you do over any 24-hour period of time, and you actually repeat it. So if I go to bed and every day at 9 o'clock, my body says, all right, this is time what you should be going to bed, and you get used to it. That's what circadian rhythm is. Go to bed at 9, and I should wake up by 5, right? I mean,
So you're telling me I'm going to jack mine up tonight with the Bucks count?
you are probably a little cold beer too in there somewhere.
I hope not on a Monday night.
Right?
Why did they do football at 8:15 on a Monday night in Florida?
I don't know.
So, so sleep, light, circadian. Again, I think I've said this every one of these contributing cause chapters. It makes sense, right? Sleep, I guess we'll start there. I mean, that is the, in regards to metabolism, and that's when the body slows down, goes into like a rest and repair cycle, right? Certain genes or cells turn off. Certain ones obviously run nonstop.
It's what time you heal. I mean,
Yeah.
Find me I was having this argument with my son the other day. I said, find me a performance athlete that operates at a very high level that gets 5 hours of sleep a night. You won't do it. There's no way. I mean, you get back to the old days of baseball and the Babe Ruths with the guys drunk in the clubhouses and stuff, or even Lenny Dykstra, not Pete Rose days, but the Phillies from the 80s and 90s. I mean, maybe you're talking like, oh, that's a different era. But those guys weren't, and I don't think they could hold a candle to today's high-performance athletes. These athletes have realized just how important sleep is.
Yeah. And I think in the era you're talking, they were supplementing.
Yeah, they were not just with little alcohol either. It was with the stuff.
It snowed a lot,
right,
in that era.
But yeah, sleep is important, and I get it. My wife occasionally works the night shift. I see it from an outsider, and I see just how detrimental it is to a lot of areas. It's detrimental to mood. It's detrimental to anger. It's detrimental to weight gain. It's humans, in my opinion, weren't made to work at night. They weren't. I'm going to call it out and throw the hand grenade out there, and I'm going to get a lot of bad emails, but I don't believe they were meant to work at night.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think we can definitely adapt, So he kind of, I thought it was interesting as he's talking about sleep, and he goes into what you might expect, 7 to 9 hours a night is the healthiest. But he ends one paragraph, sleep allows metabolic resources to be devoted to growth, maintenance, and repair functions. We get that, right? But then he jumps into safety. When a person's safety is threatened, sleep needs to wait. Rest and repair are never as important as survival. This includes not just physical survival, but also status in society. Anything that has us worried, blah, 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 we lose sleep. And he points out this is normal.
This is survival mode.
It's not a disorder.
You ever woke up in the middle of the night because you thought you heard something, went to your gun safe and picked out your gun and walked around the house a little bit? Or your bat or whatever it might have been?
I've gone around the back of my house for somebody in the front yard.
And what does your heart do for the next 2 hours? Oh, you don't say you want to go, it's time to go to sleep?
Right. Well, and I would even point to it at the most basic level. My wife, for all intents and purposes, she doesn't have much to truly stress about. It's not like she's in a high-end sales job or, but she will, there in night, she just wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning and her brain is just spinning, whether it's about our son at college or Emma's upcoming prom or Everett's soccer game coming up, and her brain will just spin and it stops that rest and repair, and she'll lay there and toss and turn till 6 or 7 o'clock but it's not true
Deep sleep.
deep
Yeah.
sleep.
Yep.
Right.
So sleep, that goes into sleep deprivation. He says here can worsen depression, mania, anxiety, dementia, ADHD, schizophrenia, and substance use disorders. It can also exacerbate metabolic disorders. People with diabetes see their blood sugars rise. People with obesity can gain more weight.
And he uses that similar phrase from the last chapter. Feedback cycle. It compounds upon itself.
Right.
The more it goes unchecked. You know. So how does that tie to circadian rhythm? So is sleep not as valuable as sleep that's in its proper place in the circadian rhythm? Is that what?
You know, I have I think I mentioned it before on one of the other Snackcasts. There's a guy, Huberman Labs, that you can follow on Instagram, and this guy is absolute beast when it comes to circadian rhythms and research in that field. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't caught up on enough of it, but he says it's so unbelievably important that you are outside for the first 15 minutes of the day, that you wake up when the sun wakes up. And he's like, there's test after test after test that tell you truly the benefits of this. And he's gone into depression. I think he's gone into several of these different diseases and talked about just how important it is.
So may I, to that point, I've quit using my alarm because I can't stand.
What?
Right.
What's wrong with that?
When you're coming out of rest and
It's supposed to be peaceful.
yeah, well that, but when you, I don't know about y'all, but every now and then I'll wake up at like 5 o'clock and I'm like, well, I'm going to stay in bed. I'm not ready yet. And next thing you know, I hit like the deepest sleep.
That last hour of sleep
last hour.
is pretty good.
And then to your point, and you come out of that deep sleep so abruptly. So part of it is I'm getting old and I just wake up earlier. Another part of it is I just can't stand that abruptness anymore. So if you know of any apps, I did some research this weekend on the heels of reading this chapter. I'd love to find one that slowly lit your phone up, right? Or just slowly started to elevate in volume. I haven't found one yet. If you have one, email us, snackcast@yes.fit.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know, but I'd love to be able to know that I was not going to miss my wake up, but it not be like someone shot me in the calf with a BB gun.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So,
I guess he talked about, drugs a little bit. He talked about melatonin, not really a drug, but talks about how like going down that path of being reliant on these things. And I got to tell you, I don't know about you, but if I'm having a hard time sleeping and I take a melatonin, I don't sleep nearly as good as if I had just regular sleep.
I've actually never taken it.
Really?
I wouldn't.
It's supposed to be a natural sleep aid, and it is. That's what the body produces is melatonin, right? But I don't get anywhere close to that. What they call that REM sleep. I don't get anywhere close to that when it's like knock you out. Don't think, don't do anything. Will wake you up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, that's how it is to me. Now, my wife and kids can take melatonin left and right. And they're like, oh, I wake up fresh as a daisy. And I'm like, I wake up angry.
Yeah, I've never tried it. I think my mother's tried it, and I've heard it. I think you've mentioned trying it before, but so on the heels of the melatonin, he gets us into some details of a study they did with some mice and melatonin deficiency, I guess, and its effects on mitophagy. But he ends that with a statement about chronic sleep deprivation, which I was like, whoa, chronic sleep deprivation is a known risk factor for Alzheimer's. So if you're not getting enough sleep,
you're on a path
to
getting sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know. He goes into mitochondria's play.
Playing the role of controlling sleep. So there's that cycle again, right? There's that. Does mitochondria control sleep, or does sleep help mitochondria? I mean, you're in that loop again. Light affects mitochondria. And again, like I mentioned with the Huberman Labs there, he's talked about that important is, if that's even a word, how important that is for that early morning light to play a role in your life.
So you're kind of getting into, we're running a little long on this one, so maybe we can jump to it. But the bright light therapy at the end, I found fascinating. And so bright light therapy, what is it? 10,000 lux, the measure of light intensity. Bright light therapy has been used in a wide variety of disorders, including seasonal affective disorder, bipolar disorder, major depression, postpartum depression, insomnia, traumatic brain injury, and dementia. And he gets into a case study at the end, a kid named Caleb.
Yeah, talk about that.
So Caleb was, I forget how old, he was young, he's in school, 12. Okay. All kinds of issues, diagnosed with ADHD, put on drugs, put on sleeping pills. His trouble at school worsened. His IQ and learning abilities were high. They weren't the problem. But he was headed down this negative path. And I guess the parents got frustrated with all the treatments they were being given.
This kid was stabbing himself with pencils, right?
Yeah. Bodily harm. So anyways, they, I guess they end up with Dr. Palmer. And he said we chose 2 interventions based on the metabolic basis of bipolar disorder. Long story short, I don't want to read it to you because I think it gets boring when we just read. But he asked the kid to cut out the sweets Monday through Friday, if I recall.
Right.
And the kid was eating a lot of sweets. There was the after school, you deserve it. There was the after dinner, snack before bed.
Right.
He would play video games as soon as he woke up in the morning, and which I would consider a bad thing, but Doc Palmer didn't change that.
Right. I guess he gave in to hey, we got to give something.
But he put him on bright light therapy. So the first 30 minutes of the kid's day, he would play video games while the bright light therapy was on him. And he cut out the sweets. And I don't remember the time frame, next semester, next year, whatever. He was on the honor roll. All the behavioral things had cleared up with no drugs, no sleep aids.
No, his parents actually took him off all the ADHD medications.
Cut out the sugars, put him on bright light therapy. Changed.
I guess the ADHD medicine it does this. It actually, it's hard for a child to come down because they are stimulants, most of them, off the ADHD medication, and then it's hard for them to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So
it's like meth light, right?
Yeah, it is meth light. There's no doubt.
Yeah. So no, it was a pretty interesting case study at the end for Caleb and how bright light affected him. And of course he mentions the food with Caleb, and it looks like the next chapter, that's what we're going to get into, food fasting in your gut.
Yeah, you're getting into my wheelhouse.
Right? This is like, that's where I want to be too. So, chapter 14, it was sleep, light, and the circadian rhythm. Kevin had to explain to me that circadian rhythm was not those little bugs that make the noise up in the trees at night. But what are they called? Aren't they like circadian?
Something like that.
So anyways, we hope you enjoyed it. Questions, comments, concerns, hit us at snackcast@yes.fit.
Stay moving.
See ya.